"Stay in the kitchen," Dad whispered before the $5 million pitch dinner. I quit on the spot. Minutes later, the investor stood up and told the whole room. The chef I came for just left. So did my money. I was eating a gas station sandwich in a parking lot on Route 9 when Marcus Aldridge tore up $5 million. I didn't see it happen. I pieced it together afterward. From Tommy's texts, from a voice memo a server sent me at 11 p.m., from a food blogger named Priya Chandran, who posted a photograph before midnight that got 4,000 shares by morning. In the photograph, you can see the 4 pieces of the check arranged on a white tablecloth next to a champagne flute. You can see my sister Blee's expression, which is the expression of someone who has just watched the floor open beneath their feet and hasn't started falling yet. You can't see me because I wasn't there. I was in the parking lot of a Sunoco off the interstate, eating a turkey sandwich on white bread that cost $4.89, and I was not crying. I want to be clear about that. I was not crying. I was sitting in my car with the heat running, watching the lights of the gas station reflect off the wet asphalt, and I was the calmest I'd been in 14 months. 14 months. That's how long I'd been building someone else's restaurant. Let me tell you about the duck. The duck is a Rohan breed, a cross between Mallard and Pekin, leaner than your standard domestic, with a fat layer that renders down to something almost architectural. The reduction is a tawny port, not ruby. Ruby runs sweet and obvious. Tawny has depth, a little oxidation, a nuttiness that pulls the whole plate together. I developed that dish over 4 months, tried it 31 times. I have a notebook, a Leuchtturm 1917 in forest green, because I've been using that brand since culinary school, where I documented every iteration, every tweak to the rendering time, the resting temperature, the micro-herb configuration on the plate. Dish number 147 in the notebook, the one that made the menu. I am Sienna Enright. I'm 31 years old. I trained at Institute Paul Bocuse in Lyon for 2 years, then did a stage at a 2 Michelin star kitchen in Copenhagen under Chef Anders Rolt, who has 17 words for umami and uses all of them. I've been cooking professionally for 9 years. When I was 28, I placed second in the National Culinary Invitational in Philadelphia, which is not a television competition. It's the one the industry actually respects. The one where the judges are working chefs and the criteria is technique, not drama. Marcus Aldridge was in the audience that night, but I'm getting ahead of myself. My father, Gerald Enright, is 63 years old and has been in commercial real estate for 30 of them. He is a man of considerable organizational intelligence and very particular blind spots, and the most load-bearing of those blind spots is this. He has always believed, without examining it, that visibility is the same as value, that the person who works a room is doing more important work than the person who builds what the room is built around. My sister Blay is 34. She is genuinely beautiful, the kind of effortless photogenic that photographs from every angle and looks good in any light. She has a business degree from a school I won't name, a talent for walking into parties and making people feel like they're the most interesting person in them, and zero culinary training of any kind. Last year, at my mother's Thanksgiving table, she described the bird I'd brined for 48 hours as nice and moist. She meant it as a compliment. This is the person my father gave 40% of my restaurant to. Here's how the idea started. 2 Christmases ago, my father called me on a Saturday morning and said he wanted to open a restaurant. Something serious, he said. Not a franchise, not a chain, a destination. He'd found a property, a converted farmhouse 40 minutes outside the city, the kind of place that appears in food magazines under headlines like "Where to Drive for a Real Meal." He'd been watching my career. He was proud of me. He wanted to build something together. I said yes inside the first 60 seconds. I should examine that. I know that now. I said yes because I'd wanted my own kitchen for 9 years and couldn't finance it alone, and because the property was genuinely extraordinary. Exposed beam ceilings, a wood-burning hearth, a kitchen with natural north light, and a layout that made actual sense. And because Gerald Enright saying "I want to build something with you" hit something in me that all 9 years of professional armor hadn't fully covered. He said we'd sort out the legal structure soon. We shook hands. I drove home and opened a new notebook. The first red flag arrived 6 weeks in, wearing very reasonable clothing. We were in a meeting with a marketing consultant named Dara Finch. She does restaurant launches, runs a firm called Ember Strategy, charges $8,500 for a full brand package, and is worth every cent of it. Dara was building out the concept document. She asked who the faces of the restaurant would be. My father said, "Sienna is the creative vision. We'll need to think about who handles the public side." The public side. I turned it over in my head. I told myself he meant events, vendor relationships, the administrative machinery that I genuinely didn't want. 3 weeks later, Bull started appearing at supplier meetings. I told myself it was fine. Bull had availability I didn't, and someone needed to handle the things I couldn't do from the kitchen. She was charming to the wine rep. She remembered first names. She wore the right clothes. I was standing over a combi oven testing protein resting temperatures. I didn't have time to perform the restaurant for people who weren't going to cook in it. The second red flag was louder, but I muffled it too. It was a Tuesday in March. I was at the host stand going through a delivery manifest, and the insurance agent, a man named Paul Garrett from a local firm, reading glasses on a beaded chain, the kind of methodical person who double-checks everything twice, spread the LLC paperwork across the stand to go over the policy coverage. Gerald Enright, 60%. Blen Enright, 40%. 2 names, 1 company, 0 Siennas. I stood there for long enough enough that Paul Garrett asked if I was all right. I said yes. I picked up my pen. I finished the delivery manifest. I called my father that evening. He didn't answer. I texted him, "Dad, I just saw the LLC paperwork. My name isn't on it. Can we talk?" He called me back at 8:47 p.m. He said it was an oversight. He said we'd fix it before the opening. He said these things take time. His voice had a quality I recognized from childhood, the same tone he used when he'd already decided something and was describing it as still in progress. I should have called a lawyer that night. Instead, I went back to work. I had a tasting menu to finalize, and a wood-fire oven arriving in 4 days and 47 decisions to make before the end of the week. And my father had just told me it was an oversight, and I had spent 31 years learning to accept his version of events as the stable ground under my feet. That ground had never been stable. I had simply been very good at standing still on it. His name was Marcus Aldridge, 45, venture and hospitality capital. His firm, Aldridge Group, had a portfolio that included 2 James Beard award-winning restaurants, a boutique hotel in Oaxaca, and a food media company that had redefined what a cooking magazine could look like online. He wasn't famous in a civilian sense. He was famous in the way that matters inside an industry. The people who knew, knew. He had been in the audience at the National Culinary Invitational in Philadelphia 3 years ago because he was on the advisory board. After the finals, I was at the hotel bar in my competition whites, still coming down from the adrenaline of service, when a man in a good suit sat down 2 stools over and said, without preamble, "The duck plate, the tawny reduction. That's the best thing I've eaten in a restaurant setting in 15 years. We talked for 2 hours. He handed me his card before he left. I put it in my wallet, and it stayed there through 3 wallet changes. Like a talisman I wasn't sure what to do with. When my father approached Marcus Aldridge for investment, he did it through our pitch deck. Dara Finch had built it. Clean, smart, beautifully designed. My face was on page 3. My credentials, my stage in Copenhagen, my competition history, my culinary philosophy in my own words. The whole deck was built around me as the creative engine, the artistic reason to believe in this particular restaurant, in this particular farmhouse 40 minutes from anywhere. Marcus Aldridge boarded a plane to rural Connecticut because he saw my name. He came for the duck. He came for me. My father had no idea. None. The week before opening, I sat across from my father at his kitchen table and asked him directly, when was my name going to appear on the legal documents? He put his coffee cup down. He looked at me with the specific expression of a man who has compartmentalized something so thoroughly, he's almost forgotten it's there. "Sienna, we've talked about this. We've talked about it once, and you said it was an oversight. That was 3 months ago. These things are complicated. There are tax implications." "Dad," my voice was level. I'd been practicing level. "My name is on 0 legal documents for a restaurant I designed, stocked, staffed, and built the menu for. That's not a tax implication. That's a problem." He looked at me for a long moment. "You're the best chef I know. Nobody disputes that. That's not what I asked." He picked up his coffee. "You don't have to worry about the business side. That's what Blay and I are here for." I drove home and called Diana Marsh. Diana is a business and IP attorney, 12 years in practice, the last 7 focused on creative and culinary industries specifically. She's a compact, precise woman who had advised me on a contract dispute 2 years earlier and had a gift for explaining legal complexity without condescension. She was also, I should say, the first person in this entire situation who treated what was happening to me as something that had a real name. "What you're describing," she told me on the phone, "if documented, is a potential breach of oral partnership agreement and, depending on what can be proven about representations made to you, possibly a fraud claim, if documented." I wrote that down. "What I'd recommend right now," she continued, "is a paper trail. Everything you can document about your contributions, receipts, vendor communications, anything in writing. If there's an opening night event this weekend, be very careful about what representations are made about your role." She paused. "And Sienna, if they've used your name and credentials to attract investors without giving you ownership, that's misrepresentation. That's not your problem. That's theirs." I sat with that for a while. I texted my father one more time. I asked plainly, in writing, "Before the opening, I need to know the plan to add me to the LLC. Can we confirm this in writing?" He left it unread for 36 hours. Then he responded, "Let's not do this right now. Big week. Focus on the food." 48 hours before the opening, I sent Diana Marsh a screenshot of every text exchange I had with my father going back 14 months. She confirmed receipt at 11:23 p.m. and said, "This is good documentation. I'll review tonight." Opening night was a Friday in October. The farmhouse looked extraordinary. I will give that to my father and to Dara Finch and to everyone else involved. It looked exactly like what it was supposed to look like. The kind of place that makes people feel like they've discovered something. Warm light through the windows, the smell of wood smoke and saffron and good butter. 41 covers, everyone reserved. A jazz trio in the corner. Marcus Aldridge had the center table, navy suit, no tie. He was reading the menu when I walked through the dining room at 5:30 to check the pass, and something in the way he held it, like a person reading something they're genuinely interested in, stopped me for half a second. He looked up, recognized me, a small, private smile. My father was across the room and didn't see it. I went back to the kitchen, my kitchen, the one I'd sourced and stocked and staffed, Tommy Park on Saute, who'd worked with me at a pop-up 2 years ago, and was the best instinctive hook I'd ever stood next to. Remy Vasquez on garde-manger, meticulous, Kath on pastry, who was technically freelance but had reworked her whole calendar for this opening. 4 line cooks who'd trained on my menu for for 3 weeks. People who'd shown up at 7 a.m. to learn my mise en place, my plating standards, my philosophy about rest time, my kitchen, with my name on none of it. At 6:15, my father found me at the pass. He looked, I'll admit, good. He had the energy of a man at the center of his own story. He straightened his tie and looked at the tickets coming in, and then he looked at me. Stay in the kitchen, he said. Your sister will handle the investors. I looked at him. You cook, Blay talks. That's the arrangement. He walked back out into the dining room. The kitchen went still. Tommy caught my eye from the sauté station. Remy was looking at his cutting board in the specific way of someone trying not to look at anything. I stood at the pass for a long moment. Quick pause. If you want more stories like this in better quality, my Spotify's linked in the description. The first tickets were already printing. Table 4, table 7, the duck was on both. I looked at my apron. I thought about Diana Marsh saying, that's not your problem, that's theirs. I thought about a green Leuchtturm 1917 notebook with 147 recipe entries in my handwriting. I thought about 2 years ago in Philadelphia, and a man saying the best thing I've eaten in 15 years. I thought about the LLC filing. Gerald Enright, 60%, Glenn Wright, 40%. Then I untied my apron strings. The kitchen went completely silent. Even the sauté pan stopped hissing, though that was probably Tommy pulling it off the burner, watching me. I folded the apron in thirds. Set it on the prep counter next to the ticket rail. The gesture was so deliberate it surprised even me. I hadn't planned to fold it, but I did, carefully, the way you put something down when you want to be certain where you left it. Tommy stepped forward. You sure? I picked up my knife roll from the shelf beneath the pass, the roll that had been with me since Copenhagen, that had marks on it from every kitchen I'd ever worked in. I've never been more sure of anything. I pushed the back door open. October air hit my face. Cold, clean, wood smoke from the outdoor fire pit, cold grass, the distant sound of a car on the highway, the ordinary world, unchanged, waiting. I walked to my car. I did not look back. I sat in the parking lot for 4 minutes before I opened my phone. I wrote the text 4 times. The first version sounded like rage. The second sounded like pleading. The third was too long. The fourth version was 1 paragraph. Mr. Aldridge, this is Sienna Enright. I am not a co-owner of this restaurant as stated in the pitch deck. My name was removed from all legal documents prior to filing. I have resigned effective tonight. I'm sorry for any inconvenience this causes. Sienna. I sat with my thumb over the send button for maybe 10 seconds. Sent. I drove to the Sunoco on Route 9. I bought a turkey sandwich and a black coffee. I sat in the parking lot with the heat on, and I watched the steam curl off the coffee lid, and I did not cry. My phone started going off at 7:48 p.m. Tommy first. Are you safe? Then Remy. What do you need us to do? Then a number I didn't recognize. It turned out to be Priya Chandran, the food blogger, who'd been at table 11 for opening night and had 300,000 Instagram followers and a newsletter that food people actually read. She'd seen something happen at the center table, and she was asking, very politely, if I would be willing to talk. I didn't respond to any of them yet. At 8:03, Tommy sent me a voice memo. I sat in the Sunoco parking lot and I listened to the sound of a dining room mid-service, forks against plates, the jazz trio, low conversation, and then the sound of Marcus Aldridge tapping his water glass and standing up. I'd like to say something, his voice said on the recording, clear, unhurried. Tommy had held his phone up near the kitchen pass. The audio was imperfect, but the words were clear. I came here tonight because of a chef named Sienna Enright. Her face is on page 3 of the materials that were sent to me. Her credentials, her vision, her work. That's what I came to invest in. A pause. Long enough to be intentional. I just received a text from Ms. Enright informing me that she is not, in fact, a co-owner of this establishment, despite what was represented to me. She has resigned. On the recording, I could hear the sound of the room change, the specific murmur of 41 people absorbing something unexpected. I don't fund businesses built on misrepresentation. Then the sound of paper tearing, once, then again. She's gone, so is my money. On the voice memo, the jazz trio stopped playing. Mid-song, a clean, strange silence where the music had been. Nobody ordered dessert. I know this because Kath texted me at 8:17 p.m. Every dessert ticket just disappeared. You okay? I called Diana Marsh at 8:45 p.m. She'd already seen the Instagram post. Priya Chandran's photograph of the torn check on the white tablecloth had been shared 612 times by the time we spoke. By morning, it was 4,000. By the following evening, it had been picked up by a food industry newsletter with 80,000 subscribers, then by a regional business publication, then by a national one. Diana's voice on the phone was the calm of someone who has just watched a case clarify itself. Are you safe? Yes. Good. Don't communicate with your father or blah tonight. Don't post anything. Don't respond publicly to anything. Can you do that? Yes. Then here's what I need you to do. I need you to write down every specific contribution you made to this restaurant. Dated, detailed, everything you can remember. Suppliers you sourced, hires you made, recipes you developed, everything. Send it to me by tomorrow morning. I opened a new note on my phone and started typing in the parking lot. It took me 2 hours. The document was 14 pages long. My father called me 11 times that night. I watched the phone ring. I let it ring. The 11th call came at 11:52 p.m. and for a moment I almost answered. Not because I wanted to hear what he had to say, but because 31 years of conditioning toward his voice is a gravitational thing that doesn't simply stop. You have to consciously hold still against the pull. I held still. He left a voicemail on the last call. I listened to it the following morning. His voice was lower than I'd ever heard heard it. The vocal register of a man who has just spent several hours understanding the specific size of what he's done. He said he was sorry. He said he'd made a mistake. He said we could fix this. He did not say, I never should have done it in the first place. He said, we can fix this. Present tense. Future orientation. Still, even in the apology, making it about the path forward rather than the thing that had already happened. I played it once. I sent it to Diana Marsh. She filed a civil complaint on my behalf the following Tuesday. Breach of oral partnership agreement, unjust enrichment, and misappropriation of professional identity for commercial purposes. The complaint was detailed, specific, and supported by 14 pages of documented contributions, 3 years of text messages, and the pitch deck itself. My face on page 3, my credentials in my own words, the creative vision described in language that came directly from my notebooks. The formal demand letter requested, among other remedies, a 33% equity stake in the LLC, or alternatively, financial compensation for my contributions calculated at market rate for a Michelin-trained executive chef over 14 months, plus damages. The number on the demand letter was $410,000. I know because Diana told me that my father went pale when he read it. His attorney, a commercial litigator he'd used for real estate matters, not particularly experienced in IP and partnership disputes, advised him to negotiate. Diana had, apparently, built a very clean case. There's a thing that happens when you walk away from something you built. People expect you to be destroyed by it. They expect grief or rage or the specific hollow-eyed look of someone whose identity has been excavated. I had some of that. I won't pretend I didn't. There were nights in the 2 weeks after the opening when I lay awake in my apartment with the green notebook on my chest and thought about recipe 147 being plated in a kitchen I was no longer in by hands that had learned it from me, and felt something that was not quite grief but was in the same county. But mostly, I worked. Marcus Aldridge had texted me 3 days after the opening. One sentence. When you're ready to talk, I'm ready to listen. I sat with that for a week. I talked to Diana about what it would mean legally to have investor conversations while the complaint was pending. I called Chef Anders Rolt in Copenhagen, my old mentor, a man who responds to most life events with either silence or one very well-chosen sentence, and told him what had happened. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, you know what to do. You've always known. 6 weeks after the opening night, I met Marcus Aldridge for coffee at a hotel in the city. He had done his homework in the interim, which I expected because he is the kind of investor who does his homework. He'd read the complaint documents that had become, in a limited way, public record. He'd read Priya Chandran's follow-up piece, which was more reported than her initial post. She'd talked to Tommy and Remy and 2 of the line cooks and had a pretty complete picture of what 14 months of development had looked like. He put a folder on the table between us. I'd like to fund a restaurant, he said. Your restaurant. The actual one. The one that's in this. He tapped his temple. Not the building your father bought. I mean the concept. The duck, the philosophy, the whole thing. On paper. With your name on every document. First line. I looked at him. What would that look like? It would look like whatever you want it to look like, he said. I write a check. You control the creative. We find the right space. You hire who you want to hire. This is your kitchen, Sienna. I'm just the capital. I picked up my coffee. I'd need my attorney to review everything. Of course. And I'd need Tommy Park on saute. Non-negotiable. He almost smiled. I'll add it to the term sheet. The civil complaint settled 8 months after filing. The terms are confidential, which means I can't tell you the number, but I can tell you that Diana Marsh called me after the settlement was finalized and said, go buy yourself something nice. The restaurant my father opened with Belay is still operating. I hear things occasionally, that the menu has changed significantly, that the kitchen has had several executive chefs in the time since I left, that the reviews are adequate, not more than adequate. The duck is still on the menu, according to the website. I have not eaten it. My restaurant opened 14 months after I walked out the back door, not the farmhouse. Something smaller and more intentional. A former textile building in a neighborhood that was just starting to figure out what it wanted to be. 32 covers. The kitchen is the size it needs to be, and not 1 square foot larger, with north-facing windows that let in the same quality of light I'd been chasing since Copenhagen. Tommy Park is on saute. Remy Vasquez is on garde manger. Priya Chandran came to the soft opening and wrote something I will never frame and hang on the wall because that would jinx it, but that I have read more times than I've counted. Marcus Aldridge was at the center table on opening night. He read the menu the way he always does, like someone who understands what the words mean. When the duck came out, he looked at it for a moment before he picked up his fork. Rohan or Moulard, he asked. Rohan, I said. Tawny reduction, he nodded. Took the first bite. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Same dish, he said finally. Exactly the same. I went back to the kitchen. The saute pan was hissing. Tommy had 3 tickets up. The smell of wood smoke and good butter was filling the room. My name is on every document. Every single one.